All right, you guys. So for this video, what I wanted to do was talk through a little bit about how to work with the body copy that's going to be included in your magazine draft. Now, you're going to go ahead and select a talk from either the InDesign or from another church publication like BYUI Scroll, but then you'll copy the text and then place it into your magazine draft layout. That should be fairly easy. That was something that was showcased in the worksheet that you've done earlier in the week. But go ahead, if you need help with that process, review that portion of the worksheet, that video, to make sure that you're adding it in correctly and having the text run through all the different columns. Then there are a couple of things in the text that we read about when we read about typography. There was a whole chapter based on different types of punctuation, footnotes, that type of thing. And it's something that needs to be applied and paid attention to as you lay out your work. So let's talk through footnotes first. You can see here I'm again in my mock draft assignment for my magazine spread. If you're copying and pasting information, especially from the InDesign, this is a talk that I copied over from the InDesign. This, you can see it in this last column of text on my right-hand page. It says expended their own best efforts. And then it gives me a period, some quotation marks, and the number 10. That 10, when you copy it from online, it just is going to give you a regular 10. And what that actually is in reference to is a footnote to something where they had looked up. You all understand how footnotes work. So here's how I want you to either treat them in your assignment. There's two ways that you can handle it. First of all, for this project, you are not required to have footnotes or to treat them in any fashion. So the easiest thing to do would just be to go ahead and click into the text and delete it. Now, with that said, sometimes it's easier than having to go through and read the whole talk is just to apply the treatment. And it's a treatment that you should be able to utilize very quickly. When you've clicked into the text, you can basically highlight the number and it should already pull up. You can see that the text tool is selected over here in the left column in our tools panel. Then up at the top, you should be seeing all the different options available to you to adjust that type in lots of different ways, okay? So you're gonna leave it like the normal typical body text, but we wanna basically make it a footnote, and you have the option to either make it, you can see where this little hand is pointing, where it says T1, this is a superscript. When it says T with the 1 towards the bottom, that's a subscript, sub like a submarine below, and then the 1 up high, superscript like above, super up high, right? Like Superman. So I'm going to go ahead and treat it just like it would be treated in the InDesign. I think right now they're using things as a superscript. So I've highlighted my number for my footnote marking, and then I'm going to go up to my text panel at the top with all the features, and I'm going to hit the superscript. And then it will make it a 10. You can see I've taken it off. Now, if I won't go back and I want to highlight it again, if I just want to take it off and make it back a normal 10, you'll just click on that superscript button again, and it turns it into a regular 10. I can hit the subscript, and you can see that it drops it below. But I like the superscript, so I'm just going to go ahead and use that. Then you'll read through your text that are on your pages. I have a 12 down here. And of course, I'm going to go up and apply that footnote marking again. Of course, you can always just delete them, and I'm totally fine with that. But that's how you would handle footnotes, either in a subscript or superscript setting. Another place that you might see this happen is when you use like first, second, third, and you're talking about like first place, second place, 1, and then that ST, you would basically highlight that ST and it would then bump it up to a superscript. Or if you're talking about on the 4th day of May, and instead of spelling out the word fourth, F-O-U-R-T-H, you would put a 4 and then TH, then you just highlight the TH and make it into a superscript to make it bump up like that, so it should appear that way. Now let's talk about widows and orphans in regards to text. So if you remember in your reading from typography, and I don't blame you if you don't remember because it's a pretty boring chapter that you read, there are widows and orphans in the text in your body copy. All these paragraphs of text that are run through your columns are your body copy. And I wanted to show you first, just to remind you the difference between a widow and an orphan. So let's talk orphans first. On the page underneath the picture of Christ and his disciple, that first column, there is a line of text, I've just highlighted it, that says likely a million. That is just hanging out there. And for a viewer who's reading something quickly, they're going to wonder, oh my goodness, if you just started right there on that page, you would say, where does that go? Is it a caption for the picture? Does it belong to the paragraph before it? Or does it belong on the paragraph that comes after it? Where does it head? So that's an orphan. It's just a single line of text, maybe a little bit of punctuation, just kind of hanging out in the middle of nowhere, all right? With that said, the easiest way to go ahead and fix that is to basically click in. You can see on my left-hand panel, the text tool is highlighted, right? So it's darkened, so you can see that that's where I'm working, is with my text tool. I'm going to highlight that line, the likely a million, and then I'm going to go up to my type at the very top and go down to paragraph styles. Now, when you click this, there should be a flyout. That's the wrong flyout. Hang on one second. Type. Okay, I told you guys wrong. Instead of paragraph styles, you're going to go back to type, and then you're going to go down to paragraph. The paragraph and the character styles we're going to talk about in just a second. That's why I was jumping ahead of myself. So again, go to type, go to paragraph, and select it. There will be a flyout menu. So make sure you see that. If you don't see it, you went to the paragraph styles, all right? In the paragraph flyout menu, you're going to go to the options menu. It's those stacked lines up at the top where you see my cursor. Click once, and it will give you an additional pop-up menu. At this point, you're going to use what they call the keep options right here highlighted. It's underneath justification. Click on that once, and it will pull up yet another pop-up screen. Now, here's where this gets fun. Make sure that this preview button on the right-hand side is checked if it isn't already. So we're going to check that. Then we want to keep lines together, okay? So you'll click this box, and you've got two options to either keep all the lines in a paragraph together or at the start or end of a paragraph. Now, because of how my page is set up on the page before, where the most of this paragraph is, that this likely in a million belongs to, then I have a little bit of a problem. Let's just see if I say keep all the lines in a paragraph, what happens. All of the sudden, you can see underneath this pop-up window, I have lost, this is all empty space. So I definitely don't want that to happen. Instead, that might be really useful, though, to keep a whole paragraph together if you can add in some type of a text box or a pull quote or something right here. That's an option. But I want to show you the other feature that is an option if you decide to check the keep lines together. You can say at the start or end of a paragraph. Then, once you can see, all of a sudden, that line, I have a second line here. For me, that still feels like a little bit of an orphan hanging out there. So instead, at the start, we would want to say that there's at least 2 lines. I'm going to bump the start up to 3 and the end up to 3. And why I bump that up to 3, you look and see what happens to that little likely a million that I highlighted. All of a sudden, we've got 3 lines of text, and there's only a little portion right here. Looks pretty good to me. The preview shows exactly what I want, so you're going to hit OK. Now, we have gone ahead and taken care of that orphan piece of text. It's not an orphan anymore. The other thing that I want you to take a look at is what we call a widow. Now, a widow is going to be just a single word. I'm going to highlight the word affliction up here. So a single word and maybe a little bit of punctuation that is hanging at the end of a paragraph, okay? So this is something to keep in mind. Here's one right here, the word affliction. Further down here in this next paragraph, right next to the girl's head, the word second. It's all by itself. These need to be taken care of in your text. And if you were in a real life setting and you were designing a magazine, it would be expected of you to do this. Whether it is boring or not, this is part of the not fun part of laying out magazine spreads and being a graphic designer. It's tedious, but it's what makes you the big bucks. So you're going to highlight the word affliction. That is basically your widow, okay? So just a single word is a widow. A line by itself is an orphan, okay? You can use them interchangeably. Other terms that you may hear graphic designers call them are runts, or text hangs or tags. They kind of just hang out. That's why they call them that. So let's go ahead and deal with this widow. The easiest way to do this is actually to see if we can create what we call a soft return. So before we do that, I want to talk to you just a little bit about how we type on a keyboard. So you'll see, I mean, this was just perfect. I didn't hit enter to get to the next line like you would on a keyboard if you were just typing a letter to hit enter to get to a new paragraph. Instead, it has just worked the text down for me. So the easiest way to do this is to see if you can't just fix it with what we call a soft return, or by entering a non-breaking space. Break meaning that it starts a new line, that the break starts a new line. So when we hit the space bar, we can create a space or a breaking line, or when we hit the return on a keyboard, we can create a breaking line. Here, what we want to do is make sure that it doesn't create a breaking line. So you're going to want to make sure you have your text tool highlighted. You're going to click in front of the word. You can see my cursor's blinking right there in front of the word affliction, and we're going to hit backspace. Now I'm going to move my cursor so you can see it more clearly. Now we've just got a misspelling because of and affliction are all one word with no space in between. That's easy enough. You won't click off. You'll just have your cursor blinking there this whole time when you fix the widows in your text. But you'll have that cursor blinking, and then you'll go up to type, and you'll go down to insert white space, and you'll see there's a whole bunch of different options, but non-breaking space is what you want to select. So you'll hit non-breaking space, and you'll see all of a sudden it's created a white space without giving you what we call that hard return when you hit return on your keyboard and it starts a new line, or when you hit space and then because there's not room in your text box, it bumps you to a new line when you hit the space bar. So what we've created is a non-breaking space. The reason we want non-breaking is that if you did go back and decided to add in additional text, which won't happen here because we're not changing the talk, but let's say that you were writing a new article and the author gave you 2 sentences she wanted to add in, then you could go ahead and add in those 2 sentences, and this line would continue to wrap as it was without any type. It wouldn't break there. It would just treat it as a normal space on the keyboard. Okay, so that's one way that you can totally handle an orphan without creating yourself a lot of headache later, because if I had hit just a hard return to create and bumped of down, then when I rethreaded the text through, all of a sudden I might end up with some really crazy looking spaces of white between my lines of text because I had created that hard return, right, with my return key. So that's the way to do it. Just to show you one more time how that works, let's go down and take care of the second down here, right? So I'm going to hit in front of second. I'm going to back it up so you can see now it says numerous second all in one word. I'm going to leave it flashing in between. There's no space between those words. Go up to type, go down to insert white space, and then choose non-breaking space. And now you can see, let me click off so you can actually see it. Numerous second. Now we've got a little bit of white space, but there's no widow, which is really making it a lot more visual because it just flows by allowing me numerous second chances. Now here's the thing, because we did that, we made ourselves another widow right here with class. So again, backspace to get 2 of the words together, type, then go into insert white space, non-breaking space selected, and we've gone ahead and fixed that widow that we created. We've now made it totally workable for the text. Now, the last thing that I want to show you is a little bit of extra thought process, but it saves you a little bit of time and it makes you have kind of a cool skill that maybe some other newbie InDesigners don't have, okay? So part of the requirements for this project is that you put in headings or subheadings in your text. I have already selected where I'm going to put that subheading. So right here, he tells a story about when he was a freshman at BYU. I want to create a heading here. So basically what I'm going to do, you can see I've already even added in the space. But what you would basically do is hit a hard return, then go back up a space. And I'm going to put on the student side. Whoops. Student side. Now that just has to go with kind of the theme of what the story is. So if you'd read the story, you would know that this would kind of tie in. So on the student side, then you're going to basically highlight this. To be a heading, we want to make sure that it's set apart from the body text, right? So I want to go ahead, I'm going to go up, I'm in my text tool, so I've got my text panel and all my options up at the top. I want to keep it the same font as the rest of my body copy, but I want to change it to be bold. In addition, I want to change the size. I want it to be a 14 point instead of just a 12 point like the rest of the body copy. And then I also want to make it a color. So with this highlighted, I'm going to go ahead and select my eyedropper tool, and I want it to be kind of this darker yellowish brown. Let's go right there. I pulled the color off of my image, off of that disciple scarf around his neck. So you can see here that we've got ourselves this specific thing. Now you can jot it down on a piece of paper. I changed it to bold, I put it in 14 point, and then I have to go over and choose the color again. Or you can do this and it will save you a bunch of time. The first thing you want to do is highlight that after you've chosen what you want it to look like, highlight the text for your heading again. Then you're going to go up to type, and this time you're going to go to character styles. In the character styles, you can see that it says none right here. All you want to do is basically click this. You've already created what the style is going to be, the larger font size and the bold for your heading. you're going to click New, and it creates Character Style 1. And the reason that it's Character Style 1 is that it's already highlighted. So it's taking these characteristics of the line you highlighted, and it's put it here. Then if you click on Character Style, it will highlight it once, click on it a second time, but not fast, not a double click. Just a click to highlight, and then a click again will give you this highlighted word. And then I type in heading. This way I know that this is my heading features. It's my bold, it's my 14-point font, and it's the right color. Now at this point, you'll just click off and you're good to go. Now you're thinking, why is this useful and why does it save time? Well, I have to put in more than one heading. So to do so, I've decided that my next heading is going to go over here underneath the picture of Christ. I'm going to return once to give myself the extra line, go back up a space, and because I've read this, I know that the header that I want, the heading I want is repentance is God's gift to us. So I've gone ahead and typed that in. I'm going to highlight the text that I want to be my heading. Then I'll go back over. My character styles is already open, but you could definitely go type and go back and click character styles again if it wasn't showing up. Then once this is highlighted, the portion that you want to take on that specific style, then you'll just go over and hit heading. And you can see once I click off of it, it now looks exactly how it's supposed to look. The great thing about this is, let's say that you decide you don't like the color, or that you really are not in love with the font and you want to change it. The easiest way to do that is you'll go back up to type, go down to character styles, then right here on this heading, if you double click, let's see if it will let me. So you will, whoops, you do not want to style override. That's a bad idea. If you double click on it, it will pull you into the actual heading. You can see right here the style settings. It says Laura, bold, and the size, the leading, the tracking, the color, all right? You can do this button right here where it says reset to base. If you hit reset to base, then hit OK, it will leave it in, but it will take it back to what the normal copy was. So you'll have it there, but then you'll be able to just go back through and adjust. So here you could go, you could double click in, and then you could change over here. You could pick your character color. You could change your different options, okay? You can make all those settings here to adjust and then hit OK. You could use the preview button so you could see what you're working with. But that would basically give you the same look for all your headings. So it will change all your headings at once. It adjusts it automatically. This one is a little bit long, but it's super helpful. Remember, this is how you fix widows and orphans and also how you apply footnotes. I mention it. It is part of making clean copy, and although it does not say in your project requirements, make sure that you take care of widows and orphans and footnotes. This is something that provides clean copy and gives a really visual aesthetic. And so that is, I will grade down just slightly if I see these things not taken care of, all right? The other thing that I wanted to show you is that this text doesn't have it, but just naturally, it allows for hyphenation when you add in your text right off the bat. The place to change that is once you're in the type tool and it's selected, then you can go up here to the top and you can see over here where it says this box, the right-hand side, hyphenate. If I click it, that allows hyphenation to happen. We don't want hyphenated words. It makes it hard on the reader's eye. We want to make it easy for them, and we want it to be visually appealing, and having words cut in half with hyphens everywhere is not that. Make sure you take the hyphenation off as well. Take care of the widows, take care of the orphans, adjust the footnotes correctly or delete them altogether, and then make sure that you click off hyphenation. If that is all taken care of, and you will get the best grade you can on having clean copy. So that's how you handle it. I hope that helps, and I will see you in the next video.